guys, so it's time to brew my Mosaic wet hopped ale. I've heated up my mash tun and I'm about to mash in. Actually let it cool down from being heated up 1 degree too much, so kind of in a rush here to mash in. So I'm not going to get much of an intro, but I'm just going to get as much of the grains in there as possible and just get myself doughed in. So with an IPA like I'm brewing, I don't mind it being a degree or so low because just to be a little bit crisper or drier of beer. But because I was 1 degree low, I want to just get the grains in there now before I lose any more temperature. Alright, I can stir those in. I did that a little too quickly because I just broke up a big dough ball, but should be good. It's very important when you don't underlet, when you just add the grains in, to stir and bring up grain from the bottom, because as it settles down it'll form dough balls and you want to bring it up to break up any stuff that's already forming dough balls. So hey guys, so we're done with the mash out. I'm going to film it because I had to correct the temperature by boil offing, collecting runnings, bringing it to a boil. So the mash is taking a lot longer than it should, but it never really got too high to extract tannin, so it should be good. So I'm going to do now, while I let my sparge water actually cool down a little bit because I lost track of time and it got about 20 degrees too hot, is I'm going to boil off and start taking my runnings in and keep an eye on the sparge water, make sure it doesn't cool down too much. So we're just going to open up the valve a tiny bit and get my measuring cup down in there and start collecting, start boil offing, I mean. See, it's cloudy but not overly so. It looks more cloudy in the measuring cup itself. But overall it's I was going for a very light color, so get a little darker in the boil, but overall I was going for a pretty light color because I should mention that I used my grain bill. All I did was I took a Bell's Two Hearted clone that I found online and added a pound of wheat to it just to fluff up the mouthfeel. So it's gonna be a pretty light, straw to orange color anyway. So we'll just, so I'm not really worried about color in general for this, but we'll just collect. It's a little clearer, definitely clear enough for me at least. There's no grain pieces in it, so it's not really any cause for concern. It doesn't need to be running, extremely clear, to be ready to start collecting runnings. Alright guys, so I've collected my first about a little over 4 gallons of runnings. So now it's time to start slowly rinsing the grains. So I'll just open it up this much to show you what the sprinkling looks like. But ideally, I like to slow it down until it's just, just really dribbling over the top of the grain bed and making sure that there's about an inch over the grain bed, inch or more. So lately I've been past few brews, I've been using my mash paddle as kind of a gauge. So you see it has like the 4 rows of 3 holes. So as long as it's covering, the bottom 2, then I know that there's enough water over the top of the grain bed. So now that I can see that that there's enough, I don't need to continuously sparge it or spray it. I just can basically shut it off, you know, and then turn it on, you know, as needed. And as you see, there's a piece of tinfoil in there, so I'm spraying down onto the tinfoil and not on the sides where the grain bed is. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing this, you know, for however long it takes, you know, because I'm really trying to, you know, do a slow an extraction of the last like 7, just, you know, the last just over 3 gallons I need to collect. You know, I want as much sugar as possible. Hey Brew Tubers, Barry here. So we're here, as I said, brewing my wet hopped Mosaic IPA, and we'll get to more details on the hops themselves later. But as you see here, I have my refractometer, which means it's time to record the pre-boil gravity. And my goal was 1055 with about 7.24 gallons or 7.25 gallons. So I collected just about that. Really took like the last 2 gallons really slow, like to extract as much sugar as I could, while of course keeping, you know, making sure the grain bed didn't get, you know, dry or the water didn't meet the grain bed. So I have it here. I hit my numbers. I might have even gone a touch over. Again, the target was 1055. As you see, I have about 1055, 1056, which is great. You know, I'd rather be a little high than low. So, especially because my last beer, the Farmhouse Pale Ale or Liquid Sustenance Pale Ale, I was a lot under. All right, so as you see, it's time to weigh out the hops. So, because number one, this is like probably the last possible day to use the wet hops, because I could see that some of them are turning a touch brown, even though overall they still look pretty nice and green and bright. And also because sometimes people use a 5-to-1 ratio of wet hop to, you know, what would be 1 ounce of dry or pellet hops, and some people use 6-to-1. And because I don't know the alpha acids of those Mosaic hops, I decided to use some 1/5 of an ounce of Centennial at 10% alpha acids in each of the 4 flavor and aroma additions that I'm going to be doing with the wet hops. So here I have the bittering addition, a 60-minute addition of 0.60 of an ounce of Magnum hops at 12.2% alpha acid, and here I have the first one to weigh out. So let's go and start weighing them out. So after weighing out the first 2.5 ounces of wet hops, I realized that I'm going to need 2 of these quart containers per addition. So I'm going to go ahead. So with each addition, I'll fill up 2.5 ounces of one of those with the Centennials, and another 2.5 in that extra container. So once I get started in about 40 minutes adding these hops, I'll show you what the whole routine will look like. Cheers. Okay, so I rechecked my recipe and I actually put in for 1/2 ounce of Mosaic wet hops, or Mosaic hops, because of course you couldn't account for the actual alpha acid units of the wet hops. So I'm going to add in the 1 quart or 2.5 ounces plus the 0.2 ounces of Centennial at the 20 minutes left mark, and then at Flameout I'll add in the other half that you saw me weigh out. So I'm going to go ahead and put it. I'm using my big grain bag, as you saw in my last brew day video. Just pour it all in, and then just dunk it into the boil. I'm going to use my mash paddle just to push it all down to make sure all those hops get nice and saturated. But I'll just keep pushing them down throughout and over the next few minutes. But every 5 minutes in the next you know, till the end of the boil, I'm going to be adding hops. So I'll show you what it looks like when I'm adding more. Alright. So it's time for the Flameout edition, so we're going to shut off both flames. And in here we have 3 ounces of wet hops and about 1/3 of an ounce, maybe a touch over 1/3 of an ounce of Centennial, because I kind of miscalculated with my calculations for the wet hops a little bit. So it's going to end up coming out to about 60 to 65 IBUs in total, depending on how much IBUs I get from the Mosaic themselves and how much the Centennial helps round things out, because they weren't concentrated by drying them or pelletizing them. So let's go ahead and add in this last bit of hops to my hop bag, or my grain bag that I turned into a hop bag, and close up the bag and get them all down in there. And then we'll let this steep for about 10 minutes or so before I start chilling it down with my work chiller. Hey guys, so we're here for an original gravity clip, and our target was 1066, and from what I read on my refractometer I got about 1064, so about 2 points off, which is to me still hitting my numbers, because it's only 2 points off, and it shouldn't really affect the IBUs or anything with 2 points. So I'll flip you around as usual and get you in here. So as you see, I don't know how well you guys can see, but it's about 1064, 1065 in there. Alright guys, so I collected my 5.5 gallons, and as you know, I'm hitting my numbers. When the gravity sample on the refractometer cooled down a little bit, it was about 1065, 1066, so right on the money. So I'm going to go ahead and aerate my 5.7 gallons. And here I have my rehydrated, and I poured extra water in, cooled, two rehydrated packs of US-05. So go ahead and slowly pour that in. So really swirl the bottom. Nice looking healthy slurry there. Not too many dead cells. Everything looked nice and homogeneous. So as usual, take my cleaned out blow-off tube, sanitized blow-off tube, put it on top, and then open up the chamber, get it in there, and put it on blow-off jar. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the STC 1000 back down to about 19.5 or 60, a little over 67 degrees, and leave it between like 67 and 69 for the first few days, and maybe up it a little bit, but I really want to keep it max 68, 69. So that's the plan, and as usual, once fermentation kicks off, I'll come back with my usual fermentation update clip. Cheers. Hey BrewTubers, Barry here for the fermentation update for my Mosaic Wet Hop IPA. So it took off at about the 15-hour mark. It started bubbling already at the 12-hour mark, but it didn't really take off till 15. As you may know, it gets off to a start, and then a few hours later you come back and check it. So here we are at about the 19-hour mark, and as you can see, it's nice, it's bubbling. And I don't think it's reached high krausen just yet, because as you see, it's just a nice off-white foam over the top. nice thick off-white foam, and so it's bubbling pretty much every second, every other second. So a good sign of the start of fermentation, and I assume that it might even speed up a tiny bit later, you know, bigger bubbles, bigger thumps in the blow-off tube as it reaches high carousing over the next, you know, 12 to 24 hours.